Hey everyone, apologies for the delay. We've had some technical difficulties, but this is an extremely important conversation. I am Erica L. Ayala, your founder and CEO of Black Rosie Media, joined by my co-host of Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans, Brian Florentin. And we are joined by the one and only David Barry, Wages of Wins, the man who for years I have been following and reading his coverage of collective bargaining agreements, specifically in the WNBA. And we thought no better time to have David on. As I mentioned, we are having some technical difficulties. So I'm going to let David and Brian take over this conversation ahead of our Unrivaled tip off. But David, thank you so much for joining the show. And Brian, our fearless curator of our women's basketball roundup. I know David is in good hands here. So I'm going to troubleshoot some things and let y'all have this conversation.
All right. So,
Okay.
David, how you feeling this Wednesday night?
I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, so we've got a lot to get into. So, last night there was reporting that the WNBPA had a letter circulating amongst members indicating the frustrations they've had with negotiations up to this point. Just from your vantage point, how have you sort of seen the players sort of like conduct themselves as far as like how they're able to manage and sort of like try to get the best outcomes possible during negotiations.
Well, I'll run down a quick recap of what's transpired, and the way I think it should be covered. So the women initially asked for 40% of gross revenue, which is what the men get, essentially. The NBA countered and said they were paying them. If we go back to 2025, they're paying less than 7% of revenue. That's what they're paying. So we wrote about that in the New York Times. The NBA countered, said we'll give you a little less than 15%. So, a little bit more, basically doubling, a little better than doubling because revenue's going up. So it's better than doubling pay. Women come back and they seek to negotiate. They go, okay, so we're at 40, you're at 15. What about 31%? And the NBA goes, okay, less than 15. And the women say 27.5%. And the NBA says less than 15. And the women say 26%. And the NBA says less than 15. So that's not negotiating. That's just the NBA saying the same thing. And I keep saying NBA. NBA owns over 60% of the WNBA. You're negotiating with the NBA. You're not negotiating with the WNBA owners. You have not really heard WNBA owners make statements in the press because they're not. The NBA is making the statement because the NBA owns majority share of this league. And the NBA's position is we're going to pay you less than 15%. We pay the men 40%. We're paying you less than 15% because. And you sit there and say, and they say things like, well, if we paid you 31%, we'd lose $700 million. Okay, I ran the numbers on that. If you do the numbers on that, it comes out that you're saying if the difference between 15% and 30% is basically $700 million. So basically what they were saying is, if you don't accept our offer, if you accept our offer, we'll break even. Really, that's the offer you're going for? You're just going to break even? That's it? That's what you're saying? Because that's not very believable. So, and then they came back and said, well, when you go to 27.5%, we lose 400 million, 420 million. Okay, well that was only a 3.5% difference. How come your losses went down 280 million? It sounds like you're just making these numbers up every step of the way. You're just making up the numbers. And I've studied this type of thing for a very long time. And if you go back to 1983, when the NBA got the salary cap from the NBA players, they told the Washington Post at that time, and you can look this article up, you can find it online. The article was, we are bleeding red ink. We are losing tons of money on the NBA. And the NBA at that time is adjusted for inflation, roughly where the WNBA is now. Actually a little smaller, but roughly the same size. And they say, we're bleeding red ink. And David Dupree wrote this big old article in Washington Post. We're bleeding red ink. Our losses are $15 to $20 million a year. We are dying here. Franchises are going to fold. and they said the players are getting 57%. And they negotiated and they came to an agreement and the players took 53%. And when they took 53%, the NBA said, that's fantastic. That's great. I did the math. You only got $5 million in concessions. You said you were losing 20 million. How is $5 million in concessions fixing your problem? It doesn't fix your problem because you didn't have a problem because you made up the problem in the first place. This is a negotiating tactic they keep doing where they say, we are losing money. We can't make money at this. And the press reports it as, well, that's, who can question them? They wouldn't just make this up. And what I've been doing all along is saying every step of the way when the players, women make concessions, I've been doing the math and telling you people how many hundreds of millions of dollars did they just give to the NBA owners? And it is hundreds of millions of dollars. And I have this conversation with my students. I said, if you see television shows like this, if I give you $1 million, would you eat a bowl of worms? And students go, yeah. If I gave you $1 million, would you tell me something that's not really quite true? And they're like, well, I don't know. All you have to do is look at a camera and say, WNBA is not profitable. Would you be willing to do that for $1 million? Would you be willing to do it for $500 million? And I think the answer everyone would say is, you're right, I would do that. For $500 million, I'll tell you that we're not making any money. And then you sit there and say, yeah, but when you said that, you yourself, you're the NBA owners, you're investing hundreds of millions of dollars in the WNBA. Why would you do that if it's not making any money? And all they do when you bring this up is come back and go, we're not making any money. But you're investing in it, we're not making any money. But you're investing in it, we're not making any money. Okay, that's not negotiating, that's not a conversation, it's not anything. You just keep saying the same thing over and over again, and it works. The women are getting very frustrated and they're feeling like the season is going to slip away and they got to make some kind of deal here. And they are getting more than they were. And so you're starting to hear some women go, well, we got something. And you're like, yeah, you did. But it feels like we'd be further along if there were more people willing to just go through the NBA's math and go, your numbers don't add up. Okay. They don't add up. It doesn't add up. And I would also wish more people would say this. When the NBA says net revenue, okay, that's a financial term. Net revenue means it's actually revenue after you get returns. That has nothing to do with the WNBA whatsoever. So I went and talked to some finance professors I know about this, and I said, well, tell me what you think net revenue is. And then you look at the NBA's definition, and the NBA's definition is net revenue is revenue after we pay everything except the players. Okay, you can't find that definition in a financial textbook. You just made that term up. You keep saying this, but it doesn't mean anything. And you're like, we're going to give you 50% of a term that we just made up. Okay, that doesn't mean anything. You're still just giving 15%. That's what you're getting. And they just keep doing it. So it's frustrating.
I guess I wonder for the players because it feels like they've consistently just continued to give back and give back and give back. If you're in a position of leadership in the PA, is there a point where you just sort of put your foot down and say, "Hey, we're not moving any further. We've given you hundreds of millions back enough, and then this is where you have to meet us, or we're just not going to have anything go on any further."
Well, you can. You could totally do that if that's what you want to do. The problem is the NBA brings in over $10 billion in revenue. And by the NBA's own numbers, the WNBA will not reach $1 billion in revenue until 2030. But I will point out that's a huge advance. The WNBA has advanced tremendously. And $1 billion in revenue is pretty impressive for a league of this age. But it's still relatively small compared to the NBA. And I do get the sense, and you look at the behavior of people like James Dolan over time, that the enthusiasm that people have for the WNBA on the NBA side is not very high. And that creates a problem if you want to go on strike. If you want to go on strike at your job, it has to be the case that the owner cares that you do the job. If they don't care that you do the job, well, then you going on strike is, what are you threatening? If you don't give me more money, I won't play. I didn't care if you played in the first place. So Go ahead, go on strike. Uh, yeah, I think we should ask this question: for a strike to matter, let's go to those NBA owners, the 30 people who own the NBA and own 60% of the WNBA, and ask them this question: how much WNBA basketball are you watching? And if the answer is none, then what's a strike going to do to them? I'm going to take away something that you're not paying attention to. Well, it's going to cost you money. You know what? I'm an NBA owner. You know what I have? I have money. I got lots of money. I got tons of money. And the amount of money that you're going to cost me for, for you and me, Brian, that's a lot of money. But from them, it's not very much money at all. And so it's like, what's the threat? And so I think people get frustrated. They're like, well, why can't the player association, negotiate and threaten them? Threaten them with what? What are they supposed to threaten them with? The only way, if you go back in the history of men's sports, the only reason why strikes ever worked is because the owners were so in love with men's sports that the thought of not having it made them sad. So when Major League Baseball went on strike for the first time back in the early 70s, the owners caved in like 2 weeks. They were opening up their training camp right away. They were like, what do you mean you're not going to play? Yeah, we're going to go on strike. We're not playing. Oh, we can't do that. I mean, I really like baseball. I mean, I really like baseball. You got to come back and play. And that's the only way a strike matters. You have to make it so that the owner cares. But if the owner's position is, you know what, play, don't play, whatever. Well, then I don't know what you negotiate with that. I mean, and it seems to me when you look at these negotiations, the NBA is not seeming very interested in negotiating this. They made an offer. That's their offer. And the fact that they haven't budged on that offer for 2 months and they keep saying the same thing, and it's become comical because they first announced, there was an ESPN article, they said, we're going to pay the women more than 50% of net revenue. And people came back and said, what you mean is less than 15%. And then a couple weeks later, they said, we're going to pay them 70% of net revenue. And people ran the numbers again and said, still less than 15% of gross revenue. Then they met with the players and they gave them a PowerPoint presentation. And this time they did the salaries in a green bar chart. And it was almost like them saying, haha, but what if we made it in green? How about that? That's totally different, isn't it? And the women are like, no, that's the same numbers. We can do other colors. Would you like, we can do purple. We can do blue. What colors do you like? We can do any color you like. And you're like, okay, this is silly. This is silly. You're just saying the same thing over and over and over again. You're not doing anything. And then people are like yelling at the women going, why don't you negotiate with what? Bar charts? What am I supposed to do? And it's like there's nothing to negotiate with because they're not making any different offers because they're not trying. And you'll have people like Adam Silver going, I'm sort of interested in this. Dude, you're the NBA commissioner and the NBA owns over 60% of this. You're more than a little bit interested in this. You're in charge of this. And there was a telling quote from one of the players just the other day. Adam Silver has not participated in any of this. Why the hell is he not participating? He's supposed to be. He's the guy who's supposed to be doing this. And not giving little conversations to the press going, I'm concerned. Well, you're not concerned. You're not even talking to them. So, yeah, it's just... my attitude is I don't know what you want the women to do. I don't know what do you expect? I don't get it. I don't know what they want to do.
I've never seen an ownership structure like this where it's so many different like slices of pie as to who owns the league. The NBA has the majority of it, but then you have all the other outside people that are coming in. So I guess for players on this front, how do you is there a way to even reach a group that appears to be so intractable in the ways that the NBA are at this point?
Yeah, that ownership structure is very bizarre. To make this happen, David Stern made it set it up this way. I don't think the men of the NBA were very enthusiastic about a WNBA, and so David Stern really wanted to make this happen, and it's a really smart idea. It is. By the way, it is going to pay off tremendously. I mean, the WNBA is going to be worth. It's going to be worth. The revenue is going to be $1 billion by 2030. In 10, 20, 30, 40 years, it's going to look exactly like the NBA. It'll look exactly the same way, and all of these discussions will look very silly at that point. At this point, history is not going to remember the NBA very fondly for what it's doing right now. They're going to look at it and go, "What the hell are you thinking about?" And so David Stern was right, but to make it happen, he said, "Look, the NBA is going to own 50% of the league. The owners of the teams will own 50% of the league." And then as they went along, they sold off some teams to people independent of the NBA. That's happened. And then they did that ridiculous capital raise in 2022 where they sold off 16% of the league for 75 million. And people were like, "Well, they need 75 million. The NBA has 75 million. Why would the NBA give up 16% ownership in the league because they just don't want to spend $75 million on a league they think they should be investing in?" I mean, that's ridiculous. And that deal, the people who bought into that 16%, that is going to look like the dumbest deal anyone ever made, 10, 20, 30 years from now, because that 16% is already worth way more than 75 million. It's already worth at least a half a billion, if not more than that. And it'll be worth billions as the league keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so it was like, why would you do that? Why didn't you just keep the 16% to yourself and just spend $75 million however you wanted to? If you thought the investment was necessary, why don't you just do it? Selling it off was ridiculous. It was and part of it was they were selling it off, some of it to themselves. Some of the NBA owners bought in on it. It's like, well, why don't you just put in the money? So it's just a very bad deal. But now you have these different, WNBA owners, they got 42%. The capital raise people got 60%. The NBA itself has 42%. And that you sort of get this sense also that the NBA sort of thinks, well, we own 42%, but we don't own the team, so therefore we're not responsible for paying the players. I'm sorry, that's not how ownership works. If you own a business, you are responsible for paying your workers. There's no magic thing that says, "Oh, I don't pay that expense." You own the business, you own the expenses. That's how it works. So you don't get to own a business, just collect the revenue and not pay for anything. That's not how anything works. You don't. Nobody pays the owner of stock out of the revenue. They pay them out of the profits, which is after you pay the expenses. You got to pay the expenses. It's all very silly.
Yeah, like as you were talking, I was thinking about in 2024 when the leagues got their television deal and the WNBA, it was an entire look at how much money we're getting over the 11 years. And then you read all the reporting and it's, oh, there's hundreds of millions of dollars that they left on the table. So it feels like the PA is stuck in a place where they have intractable management and also management that is constantly underselling them when the market says, "Oh, we'll pay 800 million for this. We will pay other sports leagues that do worse numbers than you way more than 200 million a year, but 200 is the artificial max that will sort of like put on the league when it's growing rapidly day by day."
Yeah. So this is a basic idea in economics. Um, we saw this both in the negotiations for the NCAA contract for the women that was just completed, and then for the WNBA television deal. In both cases, the marketing rights were not taken to a market. So the market didn't decide what the value was. A consultant decided the value. Well, little history note, once upon a time in the Soviet Union and in China, they would have committees that would decide what prices were. And it turned out that didn't work. You can't do that. That won't work. You can't sort of just look at the numbers and say, well, I think the market would be here. You don't know what the market is until the market tells you where the market is. So if you never take it to the market, you don't know what the market value is. And I ran the numbers on WNBA television ratings and NBA television ratings. And they got $76 billion for the package. And they gave the WNBA $2 billion. And I said, well, you look at the ratings and how many people watch WNBA, and you look at numbers. It looks to me like WNBA is worth, percentage of the deal would be worth about 10 billion of the 76 billion, not 2 billion. So you just made up this 2 billion figure, and that means that you're taking $8 billion over the course of the deal from the WNBA and giving it to yourself, and then claiming WNBA doesn't make money. Well, you're the one making the money. You got the 8 billion. So again, you didn't. Again, but that was me running the numbers and me saying this is what I'm looking at. That if they were paying for viewers the same rate, and that would be what it was. Is that what the market would have said? I don't know. You didn't take it to a market. I don't believe the market would have said 2 billion. I don't think they would have said that. I think they would have given them more than that. But we don't know. You didn't try. And so, and you're just relying on these consultants. They don't know either. So yeah, they have consistently undervalued it. The attitude they've had about it, you have to understand, Adam Silver, James Dolan, all the NBA owners, they inherited a league that was already successful. And they don't know what it takes to make a league successful because they didn't have to do it. And so if you go back into the history, though, and you look at what the NBA looked like back in the 50s and 60s, it was a very much a struggling league. Nobody went to see them. People today talk about players like Oscar Robertson, or they talk about the Knicks winning championships in the 70s. They did a documentary of the Knicks team that won championships, and they asked them, how many fans did you have? We didn't have any fans. Nobody showed up. Why did they go get Bill Bradley? Well, he was kind of famous. We thought that would put maybe people come see him. But I don't know. This is one of my favorite little anecdotes about the NBA's early history. Walt Frazier wins a championship with the Knicks. In 1973, he negotiates a new deal, $1.5 million over 5 years. So he gets $300,000 a year in 1973. So he got more in 73 in actual dollars than WNBA players got last year. So you control for inflation, he got like $2 million a year, but he got more in actual dollars. So they're paying Walt, and Walt Frazier had so much money that he could buy a Rolls Royce, which cost $25,000, and hire a chauffeur for his Rolls Royce, which would not cost $25,000 because average income in those days is like $10,000. So he could hire a chauffeur to drive him around for his $300,000. I mean, he had that much money and live in a Manhattan apartment. He was doing quite well. What was interesting about the deal, though, beyond that, is that the New York Times, this is how you can look this article up. How did they report that deal? Walt Frazier is an all-star guard with the Knicks, and he won a championship. And he signed a free agent contract with the Knicks. And I remember when I was writing an article, I looked up the article for the New York Times from that time period, and all it said is Walt Frazier signed for $1.5 million over 5 years. It was like a one-paragraph article, and you're like, and is he happy? Are the Knicks happy? Is there a story? And you almost can hear the New York Times reporter like telling you from 50 years ago, nobody gives a damn about this. Nobody cares about the Knicks. Okay, Yankees matter. Giants matter, Jets matter, that matters. Nobody gives a crap about Knicks. Okay, it's basket. Nobody cares about the NBA. You're averaging at this point 7,000, 8,000 fans a game. Nobody gives a crap about this thing. There's no television deal at that time. That's what it is. And so you sit there and you say, and that was where the NBA started. And so you would think, if you owned the WNBA and you were looking at a league that was like 25 years old, and you thought back to what the Knicks looked like after the league was 25 years old, you'd go, okay, we're getting 6,000, 7,000 fans a game. That's not bad. We're doing pretty good. Instead, they were like, I don't know why are we not getting 20,000 fans for this? Why is that not happening? I'm sorry, leagues don't do that. They don't just suddenly appear. It's hard for a team sport to get major fans. Unrivaled, which we are Unrivaled, got around that by doing 3-on-3 basketball, where you can root for specific players very easily because it's 3-on-3. If you do 5-on-5, though, the players kind of blend into the team, and this has been the history of the NBA and the WNBA. Now you need the fan to root for the team. I'd be willing. It'd be fun to do a survey of Unrivaled fans. Are you really rooting for the Phantom? Are you rooting for these teams, or are you just rooting for the players that you like? And I think the answer is you're rooting for the players, aren't you?
Well, I think that's a really interesting question. And anyone who's listening and watching with us live, definitely let us know in the chat, because I know that there's places like the Sports Innovation Lab, David, that have done some research on this. And generally speaking, the trend that we see in women's sports is that women's sports fans tend to have more of an affinity to player than to team before league, even. And
Yeah,
so,
I don't know about that. I don't know that's really true. I mean, I know fans say that. I know fans say that. But you look at the Fever last year, and Caitlin Clark wasn't there, and they still showed up. I think they're rooting for the Fever. I know they say they're rooting for Caitlin Clark. I know they would say that. I'm sure they would say that in the survey. It's Caitlin Clark, but you'd say, she's not there. You're still at the game, and she ain't there. What are you rooting for now? And it turns out you're a Fever fan. And I'd like to ask this question. Here's my, because people have been saying that. They've been saying it recently about, here's an easy test for us about whether sports fans root for players or teams. Go look at a Dodgers game and count in the stands how many Ohtani jerseys that say Angels on them. Because if they're rooting for the player, all the LA people who are Angels fans, they live in the same place, would just go to the Dodgers games and they're Ohtani. I'm rooting for Ohtani. It's Ohtani. I'm just an Ohtani fan. You only see Dodgers fans. And I wonder, if you take Caitlin Clark off the Fever and you stick her on the Aces, do the Indiana Fever's fans go with that? Do they just, I'm now going to root for the Aces because I'm a Caitlin Clark fan? Or,
well, I think
know.
there's a few things. First of all, as a New Yorker, talking about Dodgers fan base is so funny because, as we know, especially as Mets fans, Brian's, Dodgers fans or Brooklyn Dodgers fans will come to, I almost said Shea Stadium, will come to Citi Field, and and they'll root for the Dodgers, or at least wear Brooklyn Dodgers stuff. And then Caitlin Clark is an outlier in a lot of different ways. I really, as much as people attach a lot of the growth in women's basketball to Caitlin Clark, and I think there is something to that, there's also, I think there's a separation there, but it's an interesting point about Indiana that still showed up. But I think also, everyone likes a winner. But I want to just tap in. We are unrivaled. So the Mist was down. Phantom was on a run. Kelsey Plum was doing her thing. And then, Arike Agumbawale starts dropping some buckets now. So Mist is up 26-24. We just got the second quarter started here. But David, I want to, talk to you a little bit about just the collective bargaining agreement. You dropped so many different nuggets here, but I think something that is a part of the through line for you is that there's a conversation that isn't happening when it comes to the WNBA negotiations, that in some ways, I think, as someone who was raised by a lawyer, it seems like there's some obvious things that should be talked about, but that aren't being discussed. And earlier you said that perhaps some of that is because the narrative seems to be, at least in media as we see it, it tends to, how will I say, take what the NBA Enterprises says as the gospel truth, without necessarily looking into things a little bit deeper. And the reason that I want to bring that up is because according to a letter that was just recently leaked, but I think was also sent several weeks ago. So it's, the letter itself is not new, but it just recently got leaked. Some of the things that the players have been asking for, which have been a source of confusion, are things like, what is the actual revenue? What comes to the players because of that revenue? What would the salary structure be like at these different points if we were to accept this deal? And those are very straightforward questions, David. But from what I gather following your reporting over the years, it's that the answers aren't coming. And so how can you negotiate? Because those are very realistic or very reasonable questions. But if if the players are feeling as though the way that the reporting has been, it's almost like the PA is withholding that information, or how it was framed, I've seen in some places, as if the Players Association is withholding that information. But I think, David, it might be beyond the Players Association, and just that NBA Enterprises is not offering that information.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The NBA does not disclose what the full expense data would be. I think we can get a good guess at what the revenue is, just based on, because they sit there. Well, you can, because they tell you what the average salary is, and then they tell you what, that we know what the percentage of revenue is, because that's been leaked, and the NBA's never disputed that it was less than 15%. So you can just do the math, and you can say, okay, this is what the revenue has to be. So we do know what the revenue is. We don't know what the other expenses are. They're all mysterious, and it doesn't make a lot of sense what they're saying. I will say that I have known economists who have been consultants on these deals in the past, dealing with the NBA, and they will tell you the NBA does not disclose full information when you're trying to make a deal with them. They won't do it. What they say is not very consistent. It's not very clear. I had one economist say, "Well, they just were throwing up formulas that didn't make any damn sense. What the hell are you talking about there?" And they just do that, and it's a frustrating thing. I also, when it comes to the reporting on this, and I'm gonna confess that I'm an economist and I have a PhD in economics, but I was trained as a journalist. I was a sports editor on my high school newspaper, and the guy who ran the high school newspaper in Lincoln, Nebraska, was an actual reporter uh, for a Nebraska newspaper. So this guy was a newspaper reporter. And one of the things he told us when we were 16 years old, you can't say anything in an article that you don't know is true. And if it's not true, then you have to say it that way. And so when the NBA says something like the WNBA is not profitable, no reporter knows that's true. So the proper way that my teacher in high school would have told me to report that is the NBA has alleged that it's not profitable. That's the proper way to say that. The NBA has alleged that it's not profitable. The WNBA. You can't say the WNBA is not profitable. You don't know that. You didn't see the financial statement. All you know is what they said. So you report what they say. They have said this. It may be true. It may not be true. I don't know. I only know what they said. That's all I can tell you. But I have seen reporters for years, and actually decades, report things the NBA says, this is the truth. The WNBA is not profitable. And you see the trolls online repeat that line over and over again. WNBA is not profitable. How do I know that? Because they said it. Yeah, but nobody ever saw the financial statement, so you don't actually know that. And they have every incentive to say that it's not profitable, so therefore we should be skeptical. Um, and so, but reporters do that, and that's really frustrating, because I think, when I was briefly writing at Forbes, I would try to say it, the way it's supposed to be said. And I actually had an editor at Forbes tell me, you can't say that they're alleging it because it sounds like they're lying. I said, no, it sounds like that's what they said. They alleged something. I wrote, they alleged it. That's what happened. They didn't like it that way. I said, but what if I said something? Am I alleging it, or is it true? Well, you're not the NBA, so everything you say is alleged. Okay, what's the difference? Well, you see, if we don't say it the way the NBA wants to say it, well, the NBA will cut us off and they won't let us report on them anymore. And that has actually happened to reporters. If you don't say the story the way they want it, they will talk to you. You will. I've had at least two different reporters in the last month tell me the NBA put pressure on people to make them say the story the way they want. So they do that. I left Forbes because the NBA didn't like what I was saying. So this is something they do. So yeah, it's frustrating, because I think we'd like the reporters to report it the way I think reporters were trained to say it. But on the other hand, if you do it that way, you may not have a job, because the NBA stops talking to you. You don't have anything to report. So I don't know what you're supposed to do in that situation. The NBA knows this. That's why they do what they do. And the NBA will call they have done this. They will call your editor, and they will complain, and they will put pressure on that editor, and they will make it clear If you don't do it the way we want you, your reporter's not going to get our information anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I've experienced that with other men's leagues. It's a real thing that happens. And I mean, listen, we're on my platform, so I say what I want here. It's really unfortunate, especially given the political climate. So I'm someone that was trained professionally in political science, and so, but the importance of journalism when it comes to politics, but also sports business, because sports business in women's sports is extremely political, and I think we're seeing that play out. And David, we are going to have a longer conversation, you and we're going to have that on Black Rosie Media, and I'm sure we'll continue to talk here. I do want to, though, if you want to hang out with us as we talk about Unrivaled, because I do know you are a hoops fan. I know Brian and I, as reporters covering the New York Liberty, I forget, is your affiliation, are you Minnesota or Vegas?
My affiliation?
Yes, or yes.
I'm Minnesota.
That's what I thought. I was like, I knew it was one of our arch nemesis.
I've known Cheryl Reeve for a very long time. So
wow.
In this case, yeah. So I'm now contradicting what I just said before. So I am actually rooting for a person and people I've met Lynx players, so I'm rooting for them because I know them, and that does make a difference. I will say this: everyone would be a fan of the players if they met the players. Then you would definitely be a fan of the players. Yeah, I mean, if you met them, then you definitely would root for them. I'm saying that most people never meet them, so they root for the team. But right, yeah, I did debate wearing a Minnesota Lynx sweatshirt. I have plenty of those. So I do root.
Just to troll us on Gotta Get Up.
Yeah, so it is the case that I do root for the Lynx. The Liberty definitely stole a championship. That was clearly.
Here we go. Here it
goes. Clearly not a foul. Everyone knows it wasn't a foul. It was clean block. Everyone knows clean block. Wow. Everyone knows that. Everyone saw the video. I know why the ref. I know why the ref didn't call it that way. I can understand if 18,000 fans are going to be really mad at you if you call it the way you see it. You're not going to do that.
Wow.
But we all know Cheryl was right. Errol's wrong. But
all right,
here's okay. I'm over it.
Clearly, we're all over it. Let me just ask you this: what is the economist definition of a jump ball? I'm just asking. Because I think we have to. You know how in gymnastics they name things after the person who is able to perfect the move. Nafisa Collier being able to get a jump ball off of a foul. It needs to be called the Collier. Like, come on. What are we talking about? What are we talking about here?
I'm not going to say anything bad about Nafisa. She's great.
Okay, you see, so no, let me stop. Allegedly,
yeah. Allegedly great. So yeah, I will say that what Cheryl did with the Lynx, completely rebuilding a championship caliber team from scratch. That's very rare in the history of sports. People have won championships, but then to win the championship, lose all the players from the championship, and then rebuild another championship team with completely different people. That's an amazing accomplishment. And so I'm chair of my department. So I will ask Cheryl questions about managing people, and she will tell me things. I do, I will say, she has more roster flexibility than I have.
Oh man, no, Cheryl Reeve is amazing. When she's not having a blazer throwing tantrum directed towards the New York Liberty, we love it. But I mean, you mentioned Unrivaled a little bit, and as someone who does watch women's basketball, I think there's so many things, even from the business perspective, that are really interesting. And we've got a good one here. Phantom now pulling ahead 38-36 here. But I think, you talked about with regard to the owners and the NBA owners that maybe they really just don't care about losing money on the WNBA. It certainly is looking that way. But then you have Unrivaled, of course, Athletes Unlimited is several seasons old now. We'll have Project B coming up. Do you think there is any viability in some of these alternate leagues that would be a cause for concern for the WNBA holding a line, if that is what they're doing in these negotiations, at the risk of losing the favor not just of their players but of a fan base that ultimately impacts their bottom line?
Yeah, I Unrivaled is great for the stars because that's who's playing in this.
Yeah.
These are the stars, and that's why they do so well because they what they've done making it 3-on-3 is said, what if we give you a basketball product where all you see are stars playing against stars? And they're right. It's very compelling and it's great to watch. Um, but what do you do with the other players who aren't stars? I mean, they're not going to be an Unrivaled. So I don't know where that goes.
I was trying to readjust here, but yeah, I think you're right. And it just seems like something's got to give here, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be the NBA enterprises, as I like to say, because this is beyond just WNBA leadership. I think you've alluded to that a few times, and I
Yeah.
appreciate that you talk about that a lot because to your point, people either focus on the generalizations or the things that are, you know, at best shallow. And I mean, as in, they don't, it's not the full story. It's just the superficial or artificial part of the connection from a business perspective here. And, Brian, I know you and I talk a lot about what are the metrics, what is valued in a league like Unrivaled, and how does that compare to a traditional sports model, especially when we see what the WNBA is doing. And I mean, Brian, some of the numbers were down for Unrivaled early on, and then they started doing some of the things that we've seen in talk about the yesteryear of women's basketball, like a barnstorming model, and having events elsewhere, including at Barclays, which you wrote about, of course, in our 100th episode and digest of the women's basketball roundup.
Yeah, we got a chance to talk to Mickey and Alex on Monday, and they were asked a few times just what would sort of be like a marker of success for Unrivaled in Philly and in Brooklyn. So in Philadelphia, they reported revenue of close to $2 million, and before the game started on Monday, they mentioned something to the effect of having $1 million in tickets sold in a sense for the fans who were there, and they had 18,261 in Barclays, 21,000 in Philadelphia. So their model, they were saying, is very sort of like player focused and very sort of like ground up in a sense, whereas, oh hey, this event is happening and this time in a couple weeks, is it's almost like a pop-up in a sense, where it's, oh, this thing is happening at this time, come on down. And they were really able to draw a huge engaged crowd, which I think is the best way, which I think is beneficial for them. It's one thing to have a sold out house, but if they're not engaging, if they're not interactive, it doesn't really sort of like add to the experience. But in Philadelphia and in New York, the buildings were sold out and the fan engagement was through the roof. It was loud throughout the whole game. You really got the sense that everyone involved is fully dialed into the product. They're very engaged. They're familiar with the players. So it added to the atmosphere, I'm sure, for the people at home and for the people in the building. It was especially exciting and special. So I think for Unrivaled, they were also asked if they're looking to do more barnstorming next year, and they mentioned they haven't really given that much thought yet. Right now, they were also asked within the context of the CBA talks if they're looking to eventually move up into a 5x5 format, and they were very sort of like hesitant, and they were like, just no, we're not even thinking about that, we don't want to put that in the air. So I think for Unrivaled, as they head into year three, they have questions as to what scheduling is going to look like, because they attributed that part as far as why their ratings were down at the beginning of the season because they were up against college football playoffs, the NFL playoffs. So, and the first game was on the first Monday of the year at 1 p.m. Eastern. So it was a hard find in that particular moment as well too. So I think for Unrivaled, as they get into the future, they have to sort of figure out with Warner Brothers and what their world is going to be looking like going forward. What's proper scheduling? Where can we make the most of our time to make sure that maximum eyes are on the product? How are we able to continue to engage the broader community outside of that Florida area? Or do you go into markets that don't have WNBA teams like a Nashville, like a St. Louis? Do you continue to go? Do you do another remix of WNBA cities like a Philadelphia and a New York? Would you go to a Boston? Would you go to like a Los Angeles? They have so many exciting questions to sort of figure out. And I think the sort of momentum from the second half of the season should give them a lot of confidence in what they've been building so far, and trust that if they try to branch out into another city, do postseason in a different kind of format, it would work. So I think they have a lot of good things to build on and a lot more to study and uncover as they go into year 3 of 2027.
Yeah, I appreciate your insight there because, I think it's going to be interesting to see. I also love that you said maybe putting Boston there. Definitely makes me think if some of this is or how this could be, data points that the NBA enterprises use, if at all. But I have on the screen here the live stats here from Unrivaled, and someone who we know went absolutely bonkers, went off in Barclays was Kelsey Plum. She gets a little too comfortable at times at Barclays, but she already has 22 points in the first half here in a tie game, Brian.
Yeah, Kelsey Plum. Monday night is probably going to be the only time she gets cheers in Barclays Center for like the rest of time. So she was very much soaking in all the cheers that she got there, because when Unrivaled is over and the WNBA season's back, those cheers are right back into booze. So enjoy that experience now. But she's been fantastic, and I think especially for the 3-on-3 format, she has so much room to navigate and work with. Her first step, even in the W context, is so lightning quick. And with more room to work with, you really get to sort of see that first step. You really get to see her drive and finish really well at the rim. And I think especially she now that she's had a full season back with the Sparks as the lead option on offense, you see the level of comfort for her being the number one in this format. It's different 3-on-3 to 5x5, but being the go-to option on offense is almost sort of similar in a sense, whereas we count on you to find good shots first every possession. We count on you to sort of get to the rim, draw contact, and do these things well. So I feel this experience has really sort of like upped her game even more. And when Team USA goes into their competitions pretty soon, having Plum off this high, I think really sort of give that USA group a little bit of extra energy and oomph as they start preparing for the World Cup in September.
Ooh, World Cup. I think that's huge. We'll see. I mean, the United States usually doesn't really have to do much for qualifiers based on their previous performances, but other teams, including Australia, and this is my transition, David, to get you involved here, because Alana Smith is someone else that we have seen flourish. Now, when she's healthy, she is such a phenomenal player. And I've said this before on Gotta Get Up, David. If I'm going to keep it a buck, you can say what you want about that final call, but I will tell you this right now. If Lan doesn't get hurt, that might have gone a different way, because she was really creating problems for the New York Liberty, even while not 100%. But then when she gets banged up to the point where she really had to kind of shut it down, I think that's also when things changed for Minnesota, if we're talking about what was now the 2024 championship, David.
Well, you look back on that Lynx team, and um, you had a Nafisa Collier who was 6'6", and then a whole bunch of players that were rejected by everybody, right? I mean, everybody had a shot at these players, and they didn't want them.
Hey,
And so, and then they ended up being, within one call of winning a championship. So it's an impressive level of roster, impressive example of roster assembly. Um, and so yeah, and again, Cheryl Reed's the one who's picking players, so she's the one who's saying, this is how this is going to work. And so yeah, it's interesting, and it'll be interesting to see how the World Cup goes because yeah, Cheryl was the coach, and then and she won't be the coach this time. I think as the rest of the world gets closer, this is interesting about Team USA is that they're going to lose eventually. They have to. I mean, they can't win forever. I don't think you want to be the coach when that happens. I think every coach that coaches this team is like praying it's not them. I hope it's not me that has the loss because they just
oh,
keep winning, and the
listen.
pressure just keeps building as the rest of the world gets better and better at
I mean, Cheryl Reeve was almost that coach, if
this.
not
Almost.
almost. If
Almost.
Gabby Williams could have snuck that toe over the line, that gave us the infamous meme Stewie just pointing. Stewie loves pointing in the most diabolical ways. So that was brutal. I was at that game, Paris 2024. It was a phenomenal game. What a great run by Team France, but they were really carried by Gabby Williams, a young Dominique Malunga. We talk about Dominique Malunga all the time, Brian. Someone who unfortunately went down a la Arike, Ogumbawale game-winning shot. She knows a little something about that. But that Young Breeze team, Brian, with multiple Dom Malunga dunks, really, I think, what was one of the highlights for sure of this unrivaled season. But then you have a vet like Arike, literally missed the 3-point shot right before her team gets her a rebound, and they have the confidence to go back to her again. Listen, a lot of people say a lot of things about Arike, but one thing is she is clutch. And is not afraid to shoot. She is the epitome for me, Brian, of shooters gonna shoot.
Yeah, and I will say that I am one of those people who are always talking down on Enrique. So I'm like, oh boy, look at that confidence. That's tremendous. But one of the things I love about Enrique is that confidence is sort of like infectious because she's never going to be scared of the moment, and I feel like for elite scorer that matters a lot because even if she's cold, it's okay. Just one shot goes in, I get one good first step and I can make something happen. So that confidence I think is really there. And in post game, she was talking to us. Our friend Tarika Foster Brasby asked her, what it was like to hit a game winner on your birthday, and she was like, she joked that normally she doesn't work on her birthday, which I don't either, as a general rule. And she also got to talking about how last summer was really stressful for her because like Dallas was didn't really exceed expectations. A lot of turmoil and conflict with with new coaching staff, roster changes, and all of those kind of things. So this experience with the Mist has really sort of not so much reinvigorated her love of basketball, but there's a sort of like joy to being on this team that she mentioned. And I think being around winning basketball again for the first time in a couple years, it really sort of like allows you to feel better about the work because what you're doing is contributing to success that you want to see. And now that you're a half away from a championship, it makes the work feel even more valuable because you're contributing, you're being a big part of that success, and you're playing alongside gold medalist in Brianna Stewart, bronze medalist in Lan Smith, and great players, three gold medalists in Alicia Gray. You're playing around successful players who have succeeded in the WNBA and internationally, so you're around players that have good habits, have had established track records of success, and you're a big part of that success here. So it gives you even more confidence to know that what I'm doing is pretty good. And then when I get back into another setting, I can take what I've learned and apply it there as well.
Yeah, 100%. As we get started here again, 45-43 to lead the third. It was Brianna Stewart gets the first bucket of the third period here. The keys for the game coming into this third period for the Mist contain Kelsey Plum. Already has a 22 piece. But I don't know. We're starting to see Stewie wake up. She's already got 5 points here to start this third quarter. But David, as I said, you are happy to. I want you to. You are welcome to stay with us, but no pressure, especially knowing that we're going to talk again. But if you do want to hang out and talk some Unrivaled in women's basketball, I mean, I alluded to this, but are there any things, whether it's even in the short, soon to be 2 seasons that will conclude tonight, or in the future, that could push women's basketball to a different place? I mean, will there be a time in the future where the WNBA is maybe not the best option? I think we're far from that if it could happen, but I just wonder if you think that even from an economic perspective, if a little more variety in the market is perhaps a good thing and can help, as they say, the rise the tide to lift all the boats.
Well, as long as they're going to do a WNBA season that doesn't last as long as the NBA season, then we're always going to have an off season where an Unrivaled can happen. So that will be true until they change that. I don't know if they're going to ever go to an 82 game WNBA season. So that's and to do that, you'd have to compensate all the Unrivaled players who'd have to give that up. And they probably don't want to do that. The difficulty with Unrivaled is, I guess a solution could be expand the number of rosters, a number of teams dramatically, so that you get the entire WNBA involved in this. And if you do that, you have a product that you're getting around the problem in team sports that has existed for the NFL and Major League Baseball and NBA and the NHL and the WNBA, and that you're asking what a fan is, and we've seen this in this conversation right here. You can tell when we're all talking about the teams that we root for, we have an emotional attachment to them. And I want to point out to you that's weird. That don't make no damn sense. We have an emotional attachment to something that has nothing to do with us. Whether the Lynx or the Liberty won a championship or not in 2024, none of us won a championship in 2024. It didn't make any difference to us. Our lives the next day after that game was exactly the same as the day before that game. It didn't change in the slightest. And yet you felt like it was different, right? You felt like something, this is one of my favorite stories is, I tell students this happened a couple years ago. The Buffalo Bills lost in the playoffs, and there was a guy in the stands crying. And I tell my students, the Bills weren't crying. They weren't crying. That was just a game. It's my job. It didn't go well today. I'll try better next time. But the guy in the stands, he's so wrapped up in this. The dude's crying over this. Like, dude, you didn't lose. You're the same dude you were the day before. It doesn't make any difference to you. Why do you care that much? Because teams, whatever we root for affects us emotionally. But the problem is for a team, that emotional attachment takes. We've seen it. It just seems to take decades to build that up because you got to have a fan network that you're interacting with, and that's how it builds up. And it just takes a long time for everyone to find that. Unrivaled has gotten around that to some extent by reducing the roster size smaller. So that what are we talking about tonight? We're talking about Kelsey Plum. We're talking about specific players, and everyone watching this is focusing on individuals that they're rooting for. And it is very easy for us to become emotionally attached to an individual. Every year when they have the U.S. Open, we might start off that tennis tournament going, I really don't know who I'm rooting for. And then as it goes along, we find a favorite, and we're like, that's who I'm rooting for. And then you become emotionally attached in that person, because a person is a person. I can become emotionally attached to a person. A team is not a real thing. And so that's the thing. So Unrivaled, I guess you have a product here that's really kind of cool in that you're kind of getting around that team issue. Because I don't know that anybody is really a Phantom fan. I mean, I don't buy that. Or I've never seen anyone wear a Phantom jersey. I don't think they're. I mean, I guess somebody does, but I mean, it's not very common. But you do see, so we're fans of the players here. We're rooting for individual players, and that's and in both seasons, I was rooting for the team that was with the players, that I wanted to root for. And so I don't know. It feels like Unrivaled is getting around that. I don't know that it can replace the WNBA because WNBA is so far along now. You're 3 decades into this. This thing is taking off. It is going to be worth billions. So that is the future where this is going. It's going to be worth billions. It's a successful league. It's clearly worked. I'm going to say this. I think Erica can say this as well because we've been covering this a long time. I think we can all say, "I told you so. I told you this would be big. You didn't listen, but I told you." I remember when they were saying when it was 6,000 fans, nobody watches this. They will. They will. That's how leagues work. They will. You're not being patient enough. So I think we can say I told you so. It's, and by the way, I do plan on being that petty. I will say I told you so.
Oh, I love it. Listen, Brian knows I live for the callbacks and the clapbacks. I truly do. But yeah, I think it's interesting, and I go back and forth because I think honestly, and you kind of alluded to it. I think fans go back and forth on how much they actually care for a team, and maybe it's not where they started, but they might end up there at some point in time. 53-45 is our score right now. Mist pulling ahead of Phantom. Brian, I don't know. Was there a favorite, do you think, coming into this game? I mean, Phantom has been so good all season, which is so different than how their inaugural year went. But Mist has been right there as well.
Yeah, like I'm looking at the prediction marker from the fans, from the voting fans on the Unrivaled website, and it was overwhelmingly in favor of Phantom. And I think I always in championship level games, my brain always defaults to best player on best team usually is the favorite, and I would say the best player among the two teams is Brianna Stewart, and I'm like, oh, okay. Knowing that the best players on this side, I sort of trust that okay, they'll probably make it shake, and then I think this game is where you really feel the absence of Aaliyah Boston because Boston has been so tremendous protecting the rim. She's really been able to expand her range. She's done so many things incredibly well and Unrivaled, and having her injury happen towards the very end really sort of throws everything off for Phantom, and it makes it really difficult, especially with a player like Stewart who's finishing well at the rim, because we've had so much discussion about her three-point shooting not being there, but she does everything else at an insanely high level, including like finishing at the rim, and she's one of the best ever to do it. So not having a rim protector like Boston, not having someone who can sort of like slow the game down a little bit, get those inside buckets for yourself on your end, having that be gone in a game like this really is gonna sort of like make its presence felt. And right now, Mr. Up 6, and when we get deeper towards the target score point, you're gonna feel the absence even more.
Yeah, I think for sure being without Boston is huge here. I mean, I hear what you're saying about best player, best team. I mean, although I rebuke that thinking when it comes to MVP, always have. And I think Asia Wilson has proved that you don't have to vote that way. But anyway, I digress. But I think what's also interesting to me is that Kelsey Plum has been solid. And I think really we talked about it earlier, but you can tell that she has a 3x3 background. She's a gold medalist in this game. And I think the best version of her game opens up in 3x3. I mean, the other night she was playing and, you're trying to, front her, and then she's blowing by you because she's got speed. She's got a very quick first step, Brian, unlike some other players that I talk about who've had to work on their first step. But if she gets downhill, that's trouble. But then if you give her space, she's gonna shoot right in your face, and that's big time trouble. So I think Phantom coming in, having not just Plum, but also Tosh Cloud, I think, and what they've been able to do throughout this season is probably, some recency bias perhaps there. I see Big Erica's comment here that I want to get to, talking about with regard to Unrivaled. They need to establish fan bases for teams, and that would probably mean they have to keep a set roster instead of changing it every year beside one player. That's interesting because there was a lot of shakeup. And this is where I go back and forth, David, because again, we're seeing a lot of innovative models throughout sports. I mean, Shaun White, right? Just fresh off the Olympics, has his model of professional and sports and extreme professional sports. You have golf, basketball, softball, all these different versions that are trying to remix the traditional model of you have a team, it is in a city or it represents an entire state. You keep that roster more or less the same. I don't know. I get the sense from the sports business side that, again, some of the trends that we're seeing, even as they follow social media trends, are to make things a little bit more, you have to be there. Literally, you have to be there. You have to watch, because the next time you tune in, it might be different. I don't know. That's interesting to me, but it's not my personal favorite style. But it seems to be the trend that we're seeing, whether that's they're always doing barnstorming or they're shaking up the rosters based on performance in the week prior, like we see in Athletes Unlimited. I mean, I don't know. Is there some kind of, what is this one of those things where we're just following the money? Is there money in this model, or is it following what seems to be the market, or what the appetite of small little doses of content?
All right. Well, before I get to that, I'm just going to say that if you thought the Phantom were going to win without Aaliyah Boston overwhelmingly, I mean, the uniforms don't win the games. I mean, you have to have the same players. If you don't have the same players, you're not going to get the same outcome. So the fact the fans were predicting an outcome when one of the major players wasn't there, it's like, well, I don't. What do you think was going to happen here? It's not. That's not how basketball works. But here's the thing about sports. We know that there is a model that works, and it goes back to the 19th century. You put the teams in the cities, you build up your fan base over time, and eventually you're just printing money, because the great thing about sports is that fans will go see their favorite team play even when they're terrible. And that doesn't exist in any other industry. That never, if you think about your favorite restaurant, if you go to your favorite restaurant tonight and they don't serve you a very good meal, you may never go back again. But if you're a sports fan, I mean, I grew up in Detroit. I grew up as a Lions fan. Imagine how horrible that's been for 50 years. I mean, that's been terrible. And they were losing. And every year we would say this. This is how being a Lions fan worked before Dan Campbell showed up. It would be this: every offseason we go, I think they're going to do it this year. I really think these are the players going to work. I like what they drafted. It's going to be great. And then that first game would start, and by the end of the first quarter, they're down 21-0. You're like, oh no, same damn team. God damn it! I don't know why I keep thinking it's going to be different. Same damn stupid damn team they've always had. And you do that every year. No other sports industry does that. And so, but the problem with that team model is it does take decades. And so we had a National Pro Fast Pitch League in softball. They bailed on it after 15 years because of COVID, and now they're trying to start another one. And I'm sorry, you went back to year zero, and you have to start all over again. It's going to take you still 2 or 3 decades to get back to where you were. And so that's just a really bad investment decision. You should have kept it going. Women's basketball today would be further along if the investors in the Women's Basketball League in 1978, 79, 80 didn't bail. They would have just kept going. That league would now be 50 years old, and it would be the NBA now. And everyone would know who Molly Volans is because she was the first star. So that's, you have to keep going. Now, can you skip all that with a different model and focus it more on the players? I imagine you could. I don't know what is the proper mix because we haven't done it enough to know. But
Oh man,
but that's the
I'm sorry to
problem.
interrupt you, but that Lana Smith move was insane. I don't even know how she made that. That was
See,
insane.
links. Lana Smith, links. See, that's the thing. That's the thing. Links will win it in the end. See, that's the thing. Right there.
That,
Right
that's
there.
that's what he really wanted to get to.
That's right.
61-56 with 149 left in the third. So we're closing in on what will eventually be the score to win it all here. But I hear what you're saying, and me personally, I agree. It's just, and maybe this is because of what I've seen in women's sports, which is its own conversation, because I hear what you're saying, and women's sports have had to be innovative in ways that men's sports don't have to be. If anything, the men's sports who feel entitled because they maybe every so often write a check or literally own the league but don't own to owning the league. NBA enterprises. But there's always this experimentation that happens by necessity in women's sports. And I like as you were talking, I was thinking about ice hockey, which I know very well, been covering for over 10 years now. And there's always been a start and stop, start and stop, start and stop with women's ice hockey. And it's not because the product wasn't good. It's not because, or I should say, because the players weren't competitive, or even that there was a lack of players that could play at a high level. It had everything to do with either the business model, but more specifically with the people running and operating the business, as to why it couldn't be successful, or why it was arbitrarily, as we've heard Don Staley say about women's basketball, held back, or intentionally, the intentionally held back. And some of the things that women's sports leagues can and can't do that's what's arbitrary, right? It's just a man somewhere deciding what women can and can't do. Story of all time. But anyway, so I think though that if you look at the PWHL, now, I have a lot of thoughts on women's ice hockey. Not going to get into those here. But what we can say is in season 3 now, the PWHL, by metrics that matter in leagues where you're operating in a city, you're representing either a city and or state, they're meeting those metrics in a very short time. And so what is it about how the PWHL is able to do things that is working, that kind of bucks the trend of you need several decades? Now, I would argue some of it is because the carryover, and what we've been going back and forth on is ice hockey fans, women's ice hockey fans, are fans of specific players. And as long as those players are in whatever women's league version we're on, version 5, 6, 7, who even knows, they're going to watch. So I think there's some of that. But it has to be more than just that, because there are superstars of women's ice hockey that are not playing in the PWHL, that have retired long before it ever existed, and aren't even involved as coaches. So I think that there is a little bit of, yes, the traditional model works, but women's sports, I think, also shows us that the traditional model can be tweaked and the timeline can be accelerated. Now, perhaps that's also just more to do with that we're not capping, in theory, except for the whole conversation that we had earlier. There's more runway. It seems like there's more space. There's more money when it comes to women in sports and women's sports leagues now, probably, than we've ever seen before. But I guess I go back and forth on, this is only good if it's anchored, right? And what is the anchor? Because Caitlin Clark is not the best basketball player to ever play women's basketball. Period, point blank. I don't care how much you like Caitlin Clark. She is not the best basketball player ever in women's basketball. It's just not. That's not even. I don't think that's a debate at this point. I really don't. But she's the one who brought in a lot of fresh eyes from college and now in the WNBA. So what is it? I really truly don't know. I go back and forth on what I think it is. But what is it that is attracting people to women's basketball. If you ask Kathy Engelbert, she might say it's rivalries. Is it specific players and their storylines being told? Is it team rivalries versus versus player rivalries? Angel, if you mention Caitlin Clark, it's almost like you have to mention Angel Reese and vice versa. I mean, I don't know, and I think that's, to me, what I find interesting about Unrivaled, Athletes Unlimited, because women's basketball has had the most success in a traditional league model. I think women's basketball could also be the avenue to see what the next innovation is in women's sports, but that is predicated on how effectively bold women's basketball players are going to be. And that brings me back to, I was listening in as y'all were talking about the CBA earlier. And I do think that, David, to your point that you made on social media earlier today, not enough attention is given to how the NBA Enterprises is kind of really messing around with these negotiations. They have not negotiated, and I think, of all people, Sophie Cunningham had a great clip saying, they're changing percentages. I'm paraphrasing what she said on a podcast, but she was saying that they're changing percentages on things that we didn't even ask for, that are not our number one. She was effectively saying, we went into this negotiation saying that our number one was the revenue share, and they're not even having any conversation on that matter. And I don't know what a win looks like right now, whether I think of the sport overall, but especially from the players. I think it's in a really interesting place right now, where it seems like the way that the league has operated and the way that the narrative has been picked up by media and by fans, that there is this pressure now for the players to agree. But my take is, if they agree to anything that we've seen reported, they are falling short of what they said they wanted in these negotiations. And while that might be good as far as there being a women's basketball league, I don't know how that makes this a good situation for the players if they cannot find a way to steal themselves a little bit more in these negotiations. Because if the owners don't care now, as we see the valuations going up, as we see the interest going up, when those numbers are, when we can report on them with a lot more confidence, when the league, if they ever get to a point and place where they start bragging about those things, which they already have done in some instances, I would argue, then why would they now be like, okay, we're in a really great place. You know what we're going to do? Let's, all those things that you brought to the table in 2025, 26, let's bring them back into that. Why? I don't know any owner that's going to do that. So is it fair? I don't know, but it feels like the players have an opportunity here to really hold the line. And I don't know, is that something that they're truly willing to do? I mean, what is it? It's today's the 3rd, the 4th. I don't know. They have until the 10th to figure it out, but it just seems like this is a really important negotiation, and it's getting bogged down in half truths, hot takes that are maybe not associated to in-depth reporting. It just makes for a really muddy back end to this negotiating table, Brian.
Yeah, it feels like the PA, just the wave of media and sort of like the discussion and how they've been presented during this process. It feels like it feels like a wave of negativity that's just been building and building and building and building, as far as they're perceived and their sort of how they're trying to get the best deal for their members. Is always painted as them being irrational. It's them being unreasonable. It's them not trying to meet the league in the middle. All those things that tend to happen in any sort of any sort of like CBA negotiation, and anytime labor tries to get their fair share from the bosses, it always starts off strong, and then the deeper it goes, it's more management starts to sort of like flex their influence. And I think in the WNBA context, we've seen a lot where in media players are painted in this negative light, and you have voices that are familiar to women's basketball fans, like voices voices you see all the time. They're like, oh, I would take that. It's 4 times more than the average from last time. Look at all this coming in. And it's like, it's very, it's laundering management's talking points in a very subtle way. And if it's one of those things where if you're really sort of like dialed into the space and you're familiar with like the players and everything like that, it's, oh, you can sort of spot it pretty easily. But not everyone is as dialed in and online, I would say, as a lot of like fans are in the women's basketball space. So if you're a layperson, as an example, and you hear someone say, oh wow, the salaries are going to go up 5 times the normal, that's amazing. And then you hear that, and then if you're labor, you're like, actually what they're doing is kind of underhanded. Like they're saying, oh, they're going to give us this money, but the real pot of gold is hidden in some back room in another state that we don't even know where it's at. It could be on another planet for all we know. So you have those things where you're fighting against the clock, because as the season draws closer, everyone gets antsy, and then with a self-imposed deadline from the league of, oh, if you don't get it by March 10, you guys are really in for it. That pressure just mounts, and and I think you start to see those things where it looks like the PA is breaking apart in the ways that it looks like they were based off that letter. And it's the clock is ticking. You feel like there hasn't been enough progress made, so now you're just risking everything, and you're making choices and making decisions that, if you're if you guys weren't sort of like, if that resolve isn't there, everything is just going to crumble, and then the league can just sit back and be like, oh, we're not going to change anything. You guys are going to come agree to what we want. And then, do you want to miss a season? As David was saying earlier, I don't think James Dolan doesn't care. Mickey Harrison doesn't care.
Well, we know
Those
James
guys,
Dolan doesn't care.
yeah, like all those guys on the NBA side who own the league, they're like, oh, you guys don't want to play? Okay, great. I can take. Let's use for an example, Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Oh, you guys are playing this summer? I can find someone to come to Indianapolis and do an event that can make some of the money back. Why not? What's it to me? So the players have this difficult balance they have to strike, where they're fighting against a really complicated opponent in the NBA, and a one that and one that has a lot of say. They'll call places to be like, if you press them, oh wait, you guys don't get access to us anymore. So it's really complicated, and combine that with these sort of negative feelings people in the country generally have towards labor as it is, it makes it even more daunting.
Yeah, I think it's a really tough situation right now that the players are in. I feel for them. I also think, David, like, the timeline that the WNBA has kind of enforced for this season, and knowing that the negotiations haven't really been moving forward, the timeline was insane even before they implemented this um, March 10th deadline. Um, it was an insane timeline. I mean, May 8th as the start date is an earlier start than we've seen in several seasons. And that I feel like that was definitely a choice. I don't know why that was the choice that was made. But again, Sophie Cunningham saying that, now they want us to play 10 additional games outside of in addition to the playoffs, I should say, and are not compensating us in what we feel is an adequate way. Again, I just don't know. Maybe the owners think they don't care right now, but is it even possible for anything realistically to be moved if it's F around, find out kind of situation. I think that the season honestly probably should be delayed. Um, and I don't think that the players lose by showing that they're going to push a little bit more, because if the league wasn't going to move a year ago, 5 months ago, 2 days ago, 2 hours ago, I mean, what I don't know. And maybe this is just me being so pro labor, but what is the downside from the players' perspective from taking more time to see if they can get the league closer to where they want to be?
Well, the NHL has haven't they lost 2 seasons because of labor disputes? So owners will do that. They will abandon a season to get what they want. I think from the owner's perspective, I do think the owner's perspective is what matters is that we win. We want to feel like we won. This is not owners already have money. I think people make a mistake in thinking that owners care a lot about the specific money they make from the leagues. They already had money, so I think there's that. I wanted to get back to a point you made earlier about how does the early league how does some of these leagues do well so early on, and I emphasize the importance of time, but that's not the only thing that matters, right? Oh no, my battery's dead. I'm gonna my computer's gonna shut down. I will tell you this tomorrow. We will talk tomorrow about why leagues succeed beyond time. But I will
Look at
have
that.
to go because my battery's not dead.
All right. Well, thank you so much
All
for
right.
your time, David. Yes, we will talk
All right.
again soon. What a tease. What a great lead up for our conversation. But thank you so much, David. Have a great
Sure
time.
thing. All right.
And we'll talk soon. But Brian, I mean, that is a really interesting point. I cannot wait to hear David's conversation on that, because I think it's going to be fascinating. For you, though, as we near this finale here, 76 to now 69 here. The Mist just need 3 points to get this win. Again, Aaliyah Boston seems to be the factor. It just seems like the Phantom ran out of some gas here. It was not for lack of effort. Woo! On Kelsey Plum's part. And now 1 point to seal it, Brian. Let's just kind of take this one in. Kelsey Plum from 3. Of course, she knocks it down. Now 72-78. I mean, Phantom, they cannot. You have to play straight up defense because you can't send them to the line. I guess they had one to give. You don't want to foul, I should say, while they're shooting.
Gotta be, yeah. That I thought they were gonna count the N1 there, but they called it on the ground. Okay, Stewie in the block. Fadeaway coming. 1 triple, 2 triple, 3 fade. Oh, what the Dirk short. Enrique. Nope.
Oh my goodness.
Can she drive? Finish? Ooh, 4-point game. Good timeout by
Kelsey Plum, 40 points?
Wowza.
Insane.
Now, if you're Phantom, no easy buckets. You just gotta make sure that you get one more stop. Man. She's such a great driver. Like I think one of the things that about Plum is that I sometimes forget how strong she is. She's so small as a guard, but it's like every time she gets in the paint, I'm like, dang, you just finishing over everybody and you just powering through people. That's amazing.
She's strong and she's also slippery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's so smooth with it too. And it's like, oh wow, you really? I did not think you had any opening there, but she somehow snakes through the defense and there she is. All right, now missed ball coming at the timeout. Unrivaled playoff record. I would say if she loses, I'd still give her a trophy of some sort. Like
100%.
Make it bigger than the All Star.
I was gonna say,
but give yourself. All right, inbound. Stewie at the top of the key. Tosh full body. Okay, cross screen for her. Oh, Game. Oh wait, offensive foul. Oh, is that Tip Hayes down again? Ooh,
You're a little ahead of me.
oh yeah, you'll see it.
No, I saw. You're like half a second ahead of me. Tiff Tip Hayes. Oof. Someone on social media was like, "Are we playing a drinking game every time she hits the ground?" I was like, "You would be in the hospital for alcohol abuse."
I ain't never seen a player go down as often as she does. Like, I mean, sometimes contact, but ooh, they got the towel on her. Hopefully, she's all right. Maybe got the wind knocked out of her.
She did this in the semis, right? We saw a circle around Tip Hayes. Let's watch it again.
Ooh, ouch. Ay, uy, Dios mío. Oof.
They said midsection. I mean, not technically wrong.
Well, I can I add a comment there that would not get me a conversation with somebody? I think not. So let me not.
I mean, listen, when you get a straight knee, listen, I'll just put it this way. There are bones, okay? That thing still hurts. There might not be as listen, it still hurts.
No, you cooking. Go ahead. No,
I was like, you know what?
I'll let you take that.
Everyone has a pelvic bone. That is anatomy. That's not the word.
Anatomically
And
correct.
thank you. I was like,
There we go.
I was like, that's not how you say that. Oh man, they're reviewing this.
I also feel like the rule of cool says championship games should not end on free throws. So I'm betting that the call is gonna stand, and then Phantom get the ball back just because. Oh wait, you want to end on a free throw? No one wants to end on a free throw. At least as fans go, I would say.
I even outside of that, I think it's probably the right call.
Yeah, like it's tough, especially because it looked like Tip beat her to the spot, and then anytime the knee goes forward enough, it's a let's see. Oh, wow. I don't agree with that call. Call overturned. Wow.
Wow.
I don't agree.
Wow.
Uh,
Tip is so dramatic though.
yeah.
Now listen, Stewie and the free throws.
I was gonna say if David were here, he'd be like, "Oh, I've seen this the movie before."
Not me being nervous. And
Ah.
also not me low key wanting Stewie to miss.
Yeah, me too. I'm like, just
Damn.
so the game
Why
can
they do
continue.
this to me?
Oh man.
Not us going hard in the paint just to have Stewie be at the okay.
Well, that's that.
$600,000 pool.
You know what? I was gonna say, like my brain was like, oh yeah, I should miss that free throw. But then imagine if you miss on purpose, Plum hits you with back-to-back threes, and you cost Alicia Gray 600K. She would come to your house.
Oh, she would haunt you and all the ancestry.
Look, Leash, Lan, Veronica, Lee, everybody's gonna come to your house. Enrique, hey, that's my money you messing with, trying to be ethical and cool, friend. Don't even think about it.
They gonna be like, call Puma, call somebody, run me my check.
Erica, do you remember that commercial where the kid touches it out of bounds and he's like, "It's on me, coach." No, it is not on you. You get the ball back for us, buddy. Don't even try it.
Dang, that's crazy. Anticlimactic. I know a lot of fans don't like that a game can end on free throws. This is kind of how I feel about Um, I don't like three on three overtime in hockey. I think go to a shootout at some point. Like you gotta just, I'm not anti shootout. Yeah, I think it's more dramatic. I don't know. 3 on 3 is also very dramatic.
Yeah, I've always found like I playoff hockey is like an anxiety like multiplier where it's like
Yeah,
yeah, and I feel like it's like the good anxiety, except if you're not rooting for anybody, of course. If you are, I don't want to be you. But it's like, oh man, just one one bad pass and it's a 3-on-2 and it's a 2-on-1 going the other way. Can your goalie make a little bit of magic just enough? We'll see.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I go back and forth. I'm not as affronted by a shootout. And a shootout and free throws are not the same for me. Like a shootout is extremely dramatic. Free throws are free throws. Like there's no equivalent to free throws in hockey.
Hmm.
Anyway, Big Eric at one saying, I hate that free throw rule. Move the point if there's a free throw. Now this is interesting because this is exactly what they do in volleyball.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so in volleyball, I think you always have to. Well, I guess it's a little bit different, but I should say it reminded me of volleyball. In volleyball, you always have to win by. I think what I was thinking of is in volleyball, you always have to win by 2, but that's because like the score goes back and forth like crazy. But I think, yeah, I'd be okay with that. Like, it has to be like a field goal.
I like that. It can't end on a free throw. It's similar in football where a game can't end on a defensive penalty. Like you have to end it in like a right way. I think that's a great idea. I like that. I hope they incorporate that for next year.
Well done, Erica. Great name. So the Unrivaled season is done. I didn't get to watch a lot of it, being that it was a Winter Olympic year.
Yeah, I was gonna say, back from being the MVP of Olympic coverage in the great country of Italy, our fearless leader, the head Black Rosie in charge.
That's me. That's me. It was a whirlwind. I think I'm still processing everything. But it meant that oh my gosh, my sleep was already trash, but it took me like a day and a half, 2 days to get back to normal. But I missed a lot of Unrivaled, which was a bummer.
Yeah, Philly was great, New York was great. All the homies was out for both nights. Like next time they're hitting the road, and next year you rolling with us too. So we gonna get it back.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, a little bit of a bummer for such a great season to end on free throws and controversially. I will say, we're on commercial break on my stream right now. I do want to take another look at the play because I'll be honest, I realized this. I was looking a lot at the contact and not actually at where Hayes was set up. So I want to see it again. I want to see it again. I was surprised. I'll put it this way. Obviously, y'all are on the stream with us. I was surprised to see it get overturned, but they seem pretty definitive. So now I want to see the play again because, like, if they mess that up. But what I will say is, and I'll say it again. I should say, man, Tip Hayes is so dramatic. That child is dramatic.
Like as soon as the call went the other way, that jersey came off, sat down, pissed. I'm like, dang, dog.
Yeah, that child dramatic. Listen, it takes one to know one. So I'm just making an observation. I'm not hating on it. I'm making an observation. And you know what? I felt this way about when I played. Listen, for all the work I put on the court, if I want to be dramatic, y'all gonna have to deal with it. Because if not for me, If not for me, okay? Like I was always on the defensive side. That's why I still love defense. But I was like, yeah, y'all gonna let me have this crash out, okay? I'm the queen of the crash out. Y'all gonna let me have this because if not for me, this game would look a lot different. So sometimes you just gotta, because it's not like, it's not like Hayes ain't putting in the work. So I will excuse the crash out because she putting in the work. But some people be crashing out and you be like, homie, but what did you do? Like, what did you even do?
That's true. And also, like, if I bought the ball, I'm allowed to crash out. Like, you just gonna have to deal. Like, I bought the basketball here. Like, I put the teams together. I got everything lined up. Look, we crashing out tonight.
The ceremony is about to get started here. Um, Lee Yuru, what a year.
Hey,
Veronica Burton,
oh, and also
come through.
yeah, Zach and Stewie winning another championship together. Very
Oh,
very New York coded. I like that. I like that for them.
very New York coded. I love that. Okay, this bling is crazy.
Whoa, can I get a diamond? Whoa, that's a big chain. Oh my god.
It reminds me of the song, Do Your Chain Hang Low? It's a throwback. Okay. Oh, look at these pants.
I think I have pants in those colors.
I was like, Brian, now you saying you got them pants.
I think
I was like, where you get them?
yeah, I feel like I bought them from like I think I bought those from like H&M a long time ago. Like I'm almost certain I still have them in my closet, but I feel like it's too small for my waist now, so I would need to go buy another pair.
Listen, it's the matching for me.
Mhm.
All right, who you got for MVP?
Gotta be gotta be Stewie. 35, 32 points?
32.
I hit it. Yep.
Give it to Plum, you cowards.
Nice crowd in the work in the studio.
Yeah, they're in Miami.
Okay, yeah, studio. Yeah, nice crowd.
That's a long speech. The Misties.
Mhm.
Wow. Worst to first?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm pretty sure they
Also,
were pretty bad.
Enrique is having a great birthday week.
Stewie had me cracking up when she was like, I actually scored in the one-on-one tournament this time. Man, Courtney Williams getting cooked. That was wild.
Man, imagine getting like I like the worst like 3-3 loss I ever had was like me. I'll never forget. It was like me and two friends of mine in like 2008. Like we lost 21-1, and after the game ended, it was like, "Yo, what just happened?"
What even happened?
Oh man, that's how it goes sometimes. Unfortunately, it's like, oh man, I'm thinking we got a little bit, but sometimes it just be like that. That looks like a heavy trophy. Land is not
It
trophy.
does look heavy.
Land. Two hands for
It
safety.
it looks heavy, but it also looks like it might be like foam in the middle, like styrofoam.
Okay.
Like it's a mold
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
sorts. I can't tell. Is it cake?
Oh, look at Zach! Look at Zach getting the lead spot. I love that for him.
Is this what it was like last year?
I don't.
I was I was in the arena, so I never watched the broadcast. This is like dragging for me. I don't know. Like championship celebrations are always awkward TV for me.
It feels very like you're trying to sort of like find the best sort of like balance for it, because it always gets to a point where it's like the team owner always goes first, but in a player owned league we don't we thankfully don't have that problem.
Right. Okay, definitely bigger than Plum's All-Star trophy.
Kathy Engelbert, hang your head in shame.
Okay, there you go.
There it is.
Stewie. She gets extra money for that, right?
I would hope so. I hit for 30 with plenty of blocks in the championship game. I need a little bit of extra change coming to me.
11 of 15, 3 of 4 from the three-point line.
That's the one I like.
I know that's right.
Hmm. When we will have other business to tend to with Brianna when if and when WNBA season returns. Like, believe me, we will get to that part eventually, guys. Don't worry. But I am gonna be fascinated to ask her about her 3 point shot, because that was a conversation coming into Unrivaled, and going 3 or 4 in a big setting like that should give plenty of confidence to the shot going forward. And then seeing how the roster looks with DeMarco and new ideas of what spacing and flow and offense can look like for her. And I think also left unsaid from this coming into this year from last year, no surgery this time, no recovery, no ramp up. Seeing you back at full strength with no lag and delay is going to be fascinating to see how it looks. So I'm excited.
Yeah, same. I flat out forgot for a long time that Liberty had a new coach until I saw him courtside in Barclays. I was like, oh, that is that dude, Chris.
You know what's funny? Like on on Monday when I was walking that, like, do you know how like in 115 when you walk down the steps towards the court and the media area in the basement? I was
Yeah.
walking and then I looked to my right and I'm like, oh wait, that's Sonia Ramon. She don't work here no more. She works in Seattle. I was like, oh shoot, there's Sonia.
I mean, listen, I in the inaugural season did a lot of reporting about how Unrivaled is the best equivalent to like um I actually did a lot of reporting. Unfortunately, the story never published, but anyway, um but I did a lot of reporting on, and I've wanted to have a conversation about what is the women's basketball version of summer league, and Unrivaled, I think, could be it. Um, yes, sometimes people point to Final Four, but it's such a short weekend and it runs up against so much, including the draft being like the next day, not literally, but it feels that way. You have to unpack your bags from Final Four and then wash your clothes and then pack them up again for draft. So it's just such a short turnaround where the whole premise of summer league, yes, like there's the 1 week that everyone's kind of focused on from a basketball perspective, but so much business gets done, so much networking happens, and I don't think the networking I don't think the networking part is there yet, from what I've gathered with regard to Unrivaled. But I think there's a lot of potential, and we saw there was Ally House had an event right at Barclays. And so, as they continue to have these kind of, as I say, tentpole events and build it out, I think that could be something to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah, I love that. And I think especially having a hub where everything is super accessible in the ways that Miami, I guess Miami adjacent for Unrivaled specifically, is just being in that greater Miami area. I feel like having a base of operations for the league to come into during the off season is so valuable, and especially because so much of the league is spread out around the world, it's hard to corral everyone once a particular season ends. So at the very least, having Unrivaled in one spot every year makes that process so much easier for players and organizations alike, and media too. So that way everyone knows, okay, we're going to be in Miami from this amount of time to this amount of time. I can make the most of this window here to get what I need done, as compared to like a, let's say, an all-star setting or the final four, where it's you're having to move every year. There are about 30,000 things you have to get done between the games itself, WNBA draft right around the corner, Hall of Fame announcement weekend as well too. So there's a lot of basketball you have to sort of keep up with in such a small window. No one person can catch it all. So I love having Unrivaled in a space where you have like an entire month and a half, and you know the schedule of the game, so it's easy to sort of like map everything out the way you want to, and it makes the life a lot easier for everybody involved.
Yeah, 100%. I'm excited for Unrivaled. I think, talking to David was really interesting. I think he's a little more beholden to the traditional sports model than I am. And again, in women's sports, we're seeing that trend. That trend is we're seeing it change. And it's not just women's sports though. Again, Shaun White, you've got all of the golfers, now Saudi money, Saudi money, but I mean, Project B. I think that the way fans engage, and their data points around this, and their specific data points around self self-identified women sports fans, Sports Innovation Lab has been doing work on this for a while. So I think that there are trends that are existing, and you can even say, what are they, Gen Z, right? I think Gen Z trends also are different than millennial trends, and Gen X trends, and that Gen Z, those are probably tax paying workforce, young workforce people. So I do think it's changing. I think it benefits women's sports, and women's basketball has so often been seen as and is in very real ways the leader when it comes to women's sports. So I think it won't I'm not worried about it taking decades, and I don't think, honestly, new leagues take decades to swell a fan base. That's not what we're seeing, anecdotally, I should say. I haven't crunched the numbers specifically, but anecdotally I don't think that we're seeing that you need decades to build. Now, sustainability is a whole different thing. I mean, just ask, all of the alternative men's football leagues about that. But I do think there's a happy medium. And I hear what he's saying, David, about it being tough for women's basketball right now if the ownership really doesn't care, which seems to be the case. I do think, though, that there's a higher risk. I worry, I should say, because I don't want to report this. I think it's just, I worry that there's a higher risk of these athletes not pushing when the numbers are on the up and up. Because if anything happens and that momentum is lost, then the CBA negotiations for whatever the next time are immediately taking a step back. Because logically, what the players are asking for, even when it comes to just transparency, they're logical. There are things that make a lot of sense. They're asking for more transparency. They're asking for a seat at the table. And ownership is never going to willingly do that. But I think a smart business mind would understand that certain concessions at this time, if you give certain things, you are almost guaranteed to make that back. But now you run the risk of, you know, crashing something out that took 30 years to build, But I think David's point is also a salient one. I honestly don't know how many of the owners care, from a fiscal perspective, from a like moral perspective, from a optics perspective. I don't know that they care enough. And maybe that says all we need to know about the WNBA. Um, and if it would be sad if it goes away, but sometimes you got to let things go in order to move forward. I'm very much in my like witch era. We just had an eclipse, a full moon. We're in fire horse season, so there's a lot of like release and let go energy that's happening right now. So maybe that's where my head is at. But I mean, I don't think the worst thing in the world is a strike. I don't think the worst thing in the world is a delay. For me, the worst thing in the world for the players is for them to agree to these freaking crumbs that the league is offering, because it's insulting. It's truly insulting at this point.
Yeah, I was thinking earlier for the PA, if you wind up accepting a bad deal where you don't get any part of the real money, you're probably never going to get to it again, because I think this process has shown that I think it's true every labor negotiation is that management always has time on their side. Like for players in labor, your time is limited, so you have to get out there as much as you can to really make the most of your ability at this stage in your life. Whereas if you're from old money, or if you're a tech person, you can just wait them out. Okay, like we can see who really has the will to get what they want here. So I think for players, they have to really get to a space where they're able to sort of like have resolve in what they're doing. And I think that starts with really just making sure that their shop is in order. Like when I read the story last night, I was like, "A, why is this come? Why, like, cause I was joking with a friend of mine. Like, this sounds like dealing with a bad nonprofit as far as like negotiations go, where it's like, oh hey, oh we'd love to pay, but we just can't do it, guys. And then it's like, oh, show us the books. Oh no, we can't do that. And I'm thinking about that, and the thought of having something like that written to begin with. It's a you guys are meeting every week. You guys have, like, we've known we were on this road since 2023 when Erica, you reported that they said that we are opting out. So we've known since 2023, and this is the same, I would say the same executive committee from that time to now. So it's been 3 years to this point, and no one is able to communicate freely. No one has an idea as to what the role of the EC is. No one is able to sort of like do these kind of things. What is going on? And to have a letter like that written and then have it sent to leadership, and then it eventually gets out to uh, not just ESPN and Lex. We love Lex here. Like that's our person. But interestingly, the co-writer on that story was Don Van Natta Jr. And when I see Don's name, I know some stuff is going down, because Don got all the scoops. He got all the news. He broke all the NFLPA labor business that was happening a few months ago, where their leadership went upside down. So you have one of the biggest heavy hitters in sports reporting on the case, and you guys look so unorganized and it looks so chaotic. And it's one of those things where I look at leadership from top to bottom. I'm like, guys, what is your communication process like? You guys are meeting every week, and then no one has an idea as to what's what. No one is able to message in public when you have league affiliated voices really sort of setting the table as far as discussion goes. You guys have platforms. You guys are well known. You guys have access to certain things. How is it that the league is one step ahead of you? And how is it that the league is a unified front from Adam Silver, Kathy Engelbert, Mark Tatum, and everyone else down the line? Everyone on the management side is one band, one sound. And for the PA, it's, oh, we we don't want to strike. We just want to play basketball. And it's, you're not. you're disarming yourself in the labor fight, and for what? You're doing that. You're also not like one of the things I'm trying to be very careful about with the PA is that they get actions that I think are like super basic and not like radical in some way, like Scabby the Rat or social media messaging when it comes to like Valentine's Day, things like that. I find them to be fine. I don't think they're like out of control, disrespectful, or anything, but I feel like for the PA, they've let social media discussion sort of like this dissuade them from being active and really getting in there, because during NBA All-Star there was reporting from front office sports that indicated that WNBA players were considering doing an action at All-Star weekend since Adam Silver was there, but they decided against it. And in a situation when you know that the league has gone 6 weeks without negotiating, and when they do come, they play in your face, and they prevent and they give you the same offer over and over and over and over and over. What is the we'll just play nice because cool dad Adams said he's gonna come join us in negotiations, and then Jeff Magliachetti asked Stewie about it on Monday. She's like, Adam never came, and it's you guys, you guys were being optimistic, you guys were being nice about it, and then they played in your face, which should remind you always, you never like don't treat the bosses nice. Like don't treat them nice. Don't be kind to them. Like you gotta treat them bad. Treat them like they stole your money. Which, if we don't know what the books are, they probably are. Like you gotta treat them like that, and they really haven't. Like they've been nice about it. They've like, oh, these players are so unreasonable. Look at how Natasha Cloud is talking on social media. Look at how she's posting on TikTok. That's out of control. This is where are the sensible voices who are moderating? And it feels like the PA has gotten snookered by that. Like, they're like, oh, I don't like the rhetoric I'm hearing from the players. This is such a great deal, 4 to 5 times, and it's you don't you have to frankly tap into your inner asshole to get what you want done. Like there's no way around it, because Kathy Engelbert, Adam Silver, and that ownership, those owners over there, they want their money. Like their job is to give you as little as they can without insulting you enough to make you not want to come back to work. And if you as labor aren't ready and able to fight in that way, what have we been building up to this whole time? Because from the word transformational is buzzed into my head, because that's been the thing Neka Agumake has been saying for 3 years. We want a transformational CPA, transformational, change the business, all of these things. And we are, it's March 4th right now. Self league imposed deadline of March 10th is right around the corner. And what do we have? We have some housing, which is cool. But as far as like the real money, don't know. Oh, the league wants to do an 8 year CPA. Like,
No, I'm gonna stop you right there. I'm gonna stop you right there, dog, because you know what? No, some housing is not cool. Some housing is not cool when housing has always been on the table. That's not cool. Everything that is happening in these negotiations is very triggering as a Black woman, because these players are, it seems like, being asking for something that is very logical and being told that they are unreasonable. They're being told that they don't know business. They're being told that they're not worth that value. They're being told that, and are having to accept that if they don't relent, that the failure of the league is their fault. That's what it's giving. It's giving, these are the tactics that have been used against women since the beginning of time. And are these surprising things in labor? No, because they happen to men's leagues as well. But the coding and how it's being picked up by not just social media, but even by news outlets, that's the frustrating part for me. How many times are you going to get played to your face? You need to go into your Angel Reese and be like, y'all make me the villain so much, I'm gonna play my role to perfection at this point, because you're never gonna be enough. Even though they're selling jerseys with your name on it, Kathy Engelbert is enamored with rivals. These are not city rivals. They're not pitting New York versus New Jersey. It's Angel Reese versus Caitlin Clark that they're centering. These fools could be at the bottom of the basement. And anytime those two fools go up against each other, it's gonna be prime time, no matter how trash their teams are in any given season. So what do you mean? What do you mean it's me? Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. While also being like, it's you. Hi, you're the reason we're making money. Make it make sense. This don't make no sense. And what's frustrating, it's understandable to a certain degree, but what's frustrating is that the reporting seems to lean toward that there's a lack of a united front. But also I'm starting to doubt that, because the timing of the leak is very interesting. Not to mention that, as far as I understand, Brian, right, that letter was written not in the past even 5 days. That letter was written several weeks in advance and is now being leaked. I don't think it's, now that I have a little bit of that context, because that's what I saw in passing, that makes more sense to me, because some of the things that were reported and alleged, that were in that letter that was obtained, those are questions that we've heard the players asking for the last several weeks, the last several months, the last several years about the negotiation process. I do think it's understandable that at a point in time, people are like, oh, do we really want to strike? But that was counter to the actual process that the players association went through. They already had a vote. That's done. That ship has sailed. They already voted to empower the executive board to go on strike whenever they want. They already did that. They had to ratify that as a procedural process. So for this to come out and all of the onus, all of the questions are being asked to the players, it seems underhandedly strategic and in favor of, if not being orchestrated. I'm not saying that it's being orchestrated by the league, but the narrative that's being spun right now, Brian, does seem to favor the league, regardless of if it's true or not, regardless of if someone from the league leaked it or not. But right now, once again, the players are having to, it reminds me of what we're talking about in ice hockey. The players are being asked to respond to other people acting improperly.
Yeah, I would say that. I think I've seen reporting that from some reporting I saw, it made it seem as if it was written like Monday itself, and then it got to union leadership on Tuesday, and that's where it sort of spanned from. But I have to do. I want to double check to make sure I'm 100% right on that, so don't quote me on 100%. But I think that
Yeah, and that's another thing. It's been there's I feel like every time we get a report, then within 24 hours there's something that seemingly seems counter to the last report. So that also could be me. Maybe I'm getting confused. But that's also kind of the point, right? Anyway, I just wanted to put that out there.
No, I feel you, and I think that especially because I think the deeper anything goes in this matter, it's one of those things where all the external pressures start to come up. Like while we were away, there was the reporting that agents for players pretty much across the league, not even just like the because initially when I saw agents are reaching out, my brain reverted back to the NBA lockout of 1998 and David Falk, like Michael Jordan's agent, Michael Jordan and Patrick Ewing's agent, just sort of flexing his muscles and really getting his way when it came to what the union was doing. My brain went to that, but then I saw that apparently agents for 2/3 of the league was in touch with the PA as far as like communication and things like that, and I'm like, huh, this is very strange. Like, this is very, I don't know what to do with this kind of thing. And then now this other reporting comes out and is painting a picture of the PA as not being organized. And I think, because I wrote in the newsletter that the PA has lost the momentum, which I think is true regardless of anything. And I ended it by saying when this is over, they have to evaluate how things played out. And I ended with, hey, maybe changes need to be made. And maybe that might have jumped the gun a little bit, but I still feel that how this process is played out, and it seems like there isn't a truly unified front as far as I could tell, and I think that it's one of those things where, as players, like everybody, like yo, just like keep it in the room. Like you never like in day one, it was always don't argue in front of the bosses. Like if you got beef, call a conference. We're gonna go in another room. We'll iron it out, but we do it with ourselves only. Like that process is true for any negotiation, and I think for one with millions of dollars on the line, and not just at some dumb nonprofit like I was at, it's oh hey, no, no wild comments to the press. Nothing that makes us look bad. No anonymous players being like, "Oh, this young generation don't know how to read." Like, guys, everybody, like, I need all of you to be on one accord, please. That's all I ask of you. Like, act like we're all like 2 minutes away from a championship. If you can hold us together like that, we can get through this and we can get what we want. But it feels like there's been so many threads being pulled apart when it comes to the PA, and I think it's made a hard job even harder. And with the ownership of the league being so, it's almost like a pyramid scheme where it's like, oh, I opened this door, no, 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 wrong door. I opened this door, wrong door again. There's no real idea as to who is who, because on the men's side it's, oh hey, 30 owners and Adam Silver, we got beef with y'all, what's up? Now it's, oh wait, Mickey Harrison owns like Mickey Harrison owns like a percentage of a percentage. Oh, the Haslam family, they own a little bit through the capital raise. Oh wait, I got owners like Ted Leonsis who are triple dipping with Wizards, Mystics, 16% capital raise. It's who who is the one person, and it ain't Kathy, because Kathy ain't got no juice here. Like, what do you do, kind of thing. So now it's okay. We are dealing with the NBA, and the NBA, I would say, on the ownership side is different than I think a lot of people remember, because when Davidson was commissioner, it was just like, oh, these guys own car dealerships. Oh, these guys own this. Now it's tech men, and tech men hate labor. Tech men they will, like, as we've seen with media outlets and everything in between, they will burn the place to the ground just because, and they won't give a darn in the world. And now those are the people you're going up against. And can you outlast those guys? I really don't know. And you got those tech guys, they're bottomless wells of money, their desire to crush labor at any minute they get. They'll bang on media too, just for funsies. Like, those are the guys they're going up against. And if you guys aren't together, y'all gonna lose.
Listen, I mean, there's a lot to be said on all of that, just in regard to where this country is, let alone where women's basketball is. But we're gonna leave it there because I'm gonna have a conversation with David. We're gonna get into some of the knit and grit over this. But I mean, Unrivaled, another year, and you know, I think that we don't know what the future will hold, but I do think there are some good things that Unrivaled has been able to bring to light. Now, so many people have talked about Unrivaled kind of being, the thing that maybe, ends the WNBA. I don't think it's that. I don't think it was ever built to be that. The WNBA might be its worst enemy. I mean, that's honestly what I'm seeing from here. Again, making it about the players is unfair. Is there some messiness? Perhaps. I think honestly it comes from a place of fear, but that fear has been instilled with the actions, the in bad faith negotiations, from anything that I can tell. And again, I don't always agree with Sophie Cunningham, usually don't. But on that latest podcast, she said some things that made a lot of sense to me as far as they're changing percentages, half a percentage here and there on things we didn't even ask for, that we weren't even negotiating, and then making it like we're not, we're the ones who are ungrateful. So I don't know. It's just it's an interesting time for sure. I think that the WNBPA, I will say, seem to respond not directly, but what's the word I want to use? I don't think they directly responded to what was said or what was being reported, but they affirmatively shared their stance, including with percentages, that the over 80% of the players that took the survey, because again, that's a question I have asked of the PA and did not get an answer. It's one thing to say 84% or 83%, whatever the percentage was, over 80%, but of how many voting players, like there are voting eligible players and then there's people who actually vote. So I'm just curious. Those are not always the same, but maybe it is the same. But I mean, we just don't know. Anyway, can you tell I study political science? We need to know. But I think some damage was done for sure. I think they responded in a way that stood in their values and that they want to move forward. What happens from here, I really don't know. I will say, I mean, either way, we're going to cover the WNBA. We're going to support the WNBA. Personally, though, relenting on the revenue so quickly, and kind of accepting these negotiations, it's kind of like, it feels like, when you see in movies or something, people are negotiating and they're like, 60-40, 70-30, and then, they keep going back and forth, fast pace, and then someone trips up and says the wrong number and the people are like, yep, we'll take it. That's kind of how it feels, except it's really just the league being like, okay, well, we're going to give you this, and this that you didn't ask for, and we're really doing a lot here. So that's why you should accept this number on this one thing that you said was your most important thing. So I don't know where this all lands. Again, I don't think a strike nor a delayed season would be the end of the world. May 8th is personally a day, is the day of my birth. And so I would love for the WNBA to start its 30th season on May 8th. But also, we literally have never in the modern era, definitely not since, if I can recall, not since I started covering the WNBA, have we ever had actual regular season games on my birthday. We're usually still in preseason. And the fact that the league thought this would be the year to push the season up, that's wild to me. Like, that's nasty work, to be honest. But I guess we'll see, Brian. But we'll close it out here now. We got more things to talk about. Now that I'm back from the Winter Olympics, we'll have more of our regular women's basketball conversation. And if you missed our live streams, we're going to be back. We're going to do our shows. But I hope you haven't missed an opportunity to tap in with what Brian has been doing on the Women's Basketball Roundup. 100 editions straight to your inbox as of today. Also, shout out to Beehive, who is our distributor. We have an app. We have an app for that. That is a part of our Beehive subscription and being able to set up our newsletter with Beehive. So we have on our social media a way that you can, the steps and instructions on how to download our app so that you get not just all of Brian's thoughts on women's basketball directly to your inbox, but you can get it directly to your notifications if you download the app. But Brian, let folks know where they can find you until our next live stream.
Yes, You can find me writing at Nets Daily and the Local W. You can always find me at the world famous Women's Basketball Roundup. We've got exciting stories coming up. Tournament time is around the corner. I was at MSG on Sunday for UConn and St. John's. There's interesting conversation that I will save for later in the tournament. It definitely applies to what's going on, and a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to it. It's good to have the gang back together. We've got a lot of good things cooking.
We sure do. And look out for those who are subscribers. We're going to have ways that you can give us feedback on how to make it bigger and better for the next 100 editions and issues of the Women's Basketball Roundup. But for Brian Florenton, again, my name is Erica L. Ayala, your founder and CEO of Black Rosie Media, aka the head Black Rosie in charge. And thank you for joining our stream. We are going to talk to David Berry. And I mean, listen, I love how deep we got into certain topics, but we want to really stay singularly focused. So I have very specific questions that I'm going to be asking David. So we're going to have some of that we'll be able to report in the newsletter, but also, of course, right here on our YouTube page. All right, everybody. Have a good night, and we'll catch you on the next one. Listen, it's a wild and crazy place right now in the world, so be kind to yourself. Extend that kindness to other people, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace out, everybody.